Good morning po. Today we will be talking about lipids for grade 10 general chemistry. So, ayan, this is the content standard of our study. So, the structure of biomolecules, which are made up of mostly limited number of elements, such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. For the most essential learning competency is to recognize the major categories of biomolecules, such as carbohydrate, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acid. So we have here a question, what do they have in common? So we have here testosterone, the biwax, and butter. So as we all know, these are all lipids, and lipids is a type of compound produced by plants and animals that includes fats and oils as well as waxes and steroids. As a group, lipids have different functions and uses in living cells and organisms. So from storing energy to regulating metabolism, signaling hormones, and providing the structure of cell membrane. Lipids, this is composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and sometimes phosphorus. The carbons are linked together in a long chain, which what we call hydrocarbon chain or rings. We will see this different structure as we study lipids, but we begin with the building block that all these structures have in common, a fatty acid molecule. So a fatty acid molecule differ in their length, the number of carbon atoms in the hydrocarbon chain, but they all end up in a carboxylic group as shown below, which is highlighted in pink. So the hydrocarbon chain, this one, yung highlighted po in blue, this is our hydrocarbon chain, and the carboxylic, okay? So yung hydrocarbon chain po natin, we consider it hydrophobic or water avoiding, while the carboxylic group naman po, the carboxylic acid group is the hydrophilic group. Okay, so what do we mean by that? So the water molecule po kasi, the bonding between the oxygen and hydrogen atoms result in a polar covalent bond. And the electrons that formed in this bond are shared unequal between the atoms because the oxygen atoms have a stronger pull on electron than hydrogen does. So this creates slightly negative charge at the oxygen end of the water molecule and slightly positive charge at the hydrogen end. All right? So the bonding between the carbon and hydrogen atoms in lipid is not polar. So hindi po polar yung bonding nung ating carbon and hydrogen. And this is because the electrons in the covalent bonds are equally shared. So equally shared po yung bonding ng electrons natin and giving us a non-polar bond. Okay? So now, the bonding difference between the water, okay, so yung bonding difference po ng water natin and ng lipid is important because like attract like. So as a polar solvent, the water prefers to dissolve molecules with the polar bonds, such as salt and sugar. And molecules with non-polar bonds will not normally dissolve in a polar solvent because there is no charge on the non-polar molecule that attract the polar molecule. So the non-polar liquid mixed with other non-polar liquid. So dapat para makapag-mix po tayo ng non-polar liquid, it should be mixed with the same non-polar liquid. And for us to dissolve a non-polar solute, dapat po i-dissolve natin siya sa non-polar na liquid. Okay? So in our case, because lipids cannot dissolve in a polar solvent, they can dissolve in a non-polar solvent. Those with balanced electron distribution such as gasoline, chloroform, and this is why lighter fluid can help remove engine grease and cooking oil stains from the clothing. Okay, so that's the reason why po that the carboxylic group is the water seeking, and the reason why the long hydrogen carbon chain is the water avoiding because this is it has the non-polar bond between the carbon and hydrogen. All right, so now let's move on. So we have also different groups for fatty acid. So we have the saturated and the unsaturated. So yung saturated, they have no double bonds along with their chain. And the unsaturated fatty acids, they have one or more double bonds along the chain. So as you can see here po, the saturated, we cannot see double bonds here, no? Pero dito po sa unsaturated, we have one. All right? So that's the difference between the two groups, the saturated and unsaturated. So yung unsaturated po natin, it can also be grouped into two. All right? So we have here a trans and cis. Okay? So if the hydrogens are opposite sides of the double bond, so ito po yung double bond natin. This is where our double bond can be found. And when the opposite side of the double bond has hydrogen on it, or if the hydrogens are on opposite side of the double bond, then the chain will remain relatively straight and the molecules can tightly pack together. However, when you have a double bond and the same side, you have your hydrogen on the same side, then the chain will have a kink in it and the molecules cannot tightly pack together. Okay po? Okay, so now let's proceed to the lipids compound. So as a group, lipids are a diverse collection of naturally occurring organic compounds which plays an important role. So for fats and oils, it is used to store energy for cells. In animals, they provide the electrical insulation for nerves and cushion internal organs. Phospholipids form cellular membranes and play an important role in diffusion. The steroids are formed from the cholesterol and are involved in cellular communication. The carotenoids are pigments used to help absorb light, energy in plants and algae, and photosynthetic bacteria. The waxes form a barrier to exclude water in both plants and animals. Waxes are found in leaves, ear canals, and bee wax that makes honeycomb. So there are main types of lipids. So lipids are organized into three main classes. We have the simple lipids, the ester of fatty acids and alcohol, such as the triglyceride and waxes. Also, we have here compound lipids, the ester of fatty acids, alcohol, and additional group, which is phospholipids and glycolipids. And lastly, we have the derived lipids, substances derived from simple or compound lipids. So now let's go to, so these are the following three classes or main classes of your lipids: the triglyceride, the phospholipid, steroids, and waxes. Okay, so ngayon pupunta po tayo sa first group, which is triglyceride. So we're going to investigate triglyceride, and these molecules are made up of four simpler molecules, such as the glycerol backbone and the three fatty acid molecules. Okay, so ito po yung tatlong fatty acid molecules na meron tayo and the glycerol. So in this video po, this is an additional resources where we can see the synthesis and hydrolysis of fats. Okay, so the four molecules are assembled step by step with each fatty acid being added in turn to glycerol backbone through the process of dehydration synthesis. Okay, so let's check po. So this is the glycerol. And dito po sa kabila naman, we have the we have here the three fatty acids. And what will happen po if this H atoms come off during dehydration synthesis and this OH group come off during dehydration synthesis? Okay, so as the name of the process suggests, the water is removed from the glycerol, all right, and the fatty acids as they are chemically joined together synthesis. So one hydroxyl group is removed from the carboxylic acid end of the fatty acid and hydrogen is removed from the glycerol molecule. So the three fatty acid chains are bound to the glycerol by dehydration synthesis. So you have there the glycerol and the three fatty acids, and it will give us a triglyceride plus 3 molecules of water. So you can refer to this video po. The link is written below. So this is the synthesis and hydrolysis of fats. Okay, so now let's proceed to the next type, which is the phospholipid. They have a glycerol backbone and two fatty acid chains, but instead of a third fatty acid, they have a phosphate group with or attached. So this is a cousin of triglyceride because as you can see here po, you have two fatty acids. For triglyceride, meron tayong tatlong fatty acid. So dito, napalitan yung isang fatty acid natin ng phosphate, right? So giving us two fatty acids, the glycerol backbone, and a phosphate group. Okay, so now let's proceed po. This is the structure of steroid. So all steroids are made up of 4 rings and they differ from each other based on the group attached. Okay, so ito po, this is the structure of cholesterol and this is the structure of steroid skeleton. So as we can see here, there are 4 few hydrocarbon rings for steroids. All right. Okay, so now lastly we have the waxes. So the waxes are ester of fatty acids consisting alcohol molecule bonded to fatty acids through ester linkage. Wax is strongly hydrophobic and thus serves as effective water repellent. So this is an application of our topic for today, which is lipids. So it is a most common misconception that stomach ulcers are caused by emotional upset, psychological distress, or spicy food. Yet, no convincing study has ever demonstrated that these factors directly cause the ulcer disease. So what does cause the ulcer disease? So this video, we can see here kung ano po ba yung reason talaga kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng stomach ulcer. And what could be the medication that you could take in para sa mga taong may stomach ulcer. So also the link is provided here below, okay? And you can give it to your students so that they could know what are the reasons for stomach ulcers and what can they do if they have this kind of okay. So, ayun po, this is also an additional resources experiment at home. Watch what happens when put a drop of dish detergent into a plate layered with milk and food coloring. So, I provided here also a link. So, pwede pong gawin to sa bahay ng mga students natin. They can do this at home. So, the Mr. Kessler explains the chemistry that caused the tie-dye-like reaction and gives demonstration for kids to follow along with at home. Okay, so now let's go to the problem solving or the prob set. So which of the following statements best explain the reason why trans fats have negative health effects? So bakit kaya? So is it trans fats are made with vegetable oil? Trans fats have long shelf life. The trans fats stay in the bloodstream longer than other lipids. And the trans fats have been hydrogenated to remove all their double bonds. So ano po kaya yung reason kung bakit? Why is it, bakit kaya yung trans fat ay mayroong negative effect sa katawan ng tao? Okay, so if your answer is trans fat stays in the bloodstream longer than other lipids, you are correct. Okay, so it is because trans fats are recent addition to human diets and we don't absorb and metabolize them very quickly. That's the reason po kung bakit negative yung effect ng trans fat sa katawan ng tao. How about here? Oil and water don't mix because water has a polar bonds while oils have a non-polar bond. So true po kaya ito, false, slightly true, or none of the above? So if your answer is true, then you are correct. So next. So bakit kaya siya true? So a water molecule, it has a partial charges, the positive on one side and negative on the other, making it polar. And lipids, the oil, do not have partial charges, making them nonpolar. So polar and nonpolar substances do not mix well. So di ba po naging na-discuss naman na po natin to kanina, right? Okay, so now let's proceed po. So lipid serves as a number of function in living organism. Which of the following does not match a lipid with its function? So first, oil, waterproofing, feathers, and fur. How about the steroid hormones? Energy storage po ba siya? The carotenoids, light-absorbing pigments for the cholesterol, maintaining membrane fluidity. So ano kaya yung hindi nagmamatch sa function? So if your answer is steroid hormones, energy storage, so that's correct because the hormones, it is used for communication, not for energy. Okay, next one, some functions of lipid includes waterproofing, temperature regulation, and long-term energy storage, which is not a common type of lipid. So is it fat, oil, sugar, waxes? So ano kaya yung magiging answer natin dito? Okay, so if your answer po is sugar, okay, so yung sugar po natin, this is not a lipid and they belong to another category of biomolecule, which is carbohydrates. Okay, and then lastly, which of the following is a characteristic of both waxes and terpenes? And the answer here po is that they contain oxygen. Okay, so also here we have a question like soap. Which of the following molecules is amphophilic, having both hydrophilic and hydrophobic end? Okay, so the correct answer here po is the phospholipids. So yung phospholipids po natin, they have hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tails. Okay, so ito naman po, which of the following is the best explanation for why soaps can dissolve oily substances? So the correct answer here is that the hydrogen tails of soaps are nonpolar, so they are soluble in oil. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this video can help you for the topic lipids.